from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
The latest ag barometer shows a disconnect between optimism and reality on the farm.
I'm Betsy Gibbon. Farmers in Northwest Ohio are dealing with their third tough growing season in a row. We have a report on crop and credit conditions ahead on the show.
In agribusiness, keeping up with a wheat market rally.
If you're short a ton of Board of Trade wheat or Kansas City wheat, you had to be asking yourself, how am I going to watch Minneapolis contract rally 25-50 cents a day and not think about buying some protection here?
Drovers TV looks at markets and potential roadblocks for state checkoffs and putting Putin in the dirt ahead of a major G20 meeting.
Agday, brought to you by the dependable, longest-lasting Chevy Silverado.
Good morning, I'm Clint Griffiths. Many U.S. ag producers say the financial positions of their farms are stronger now than they were a year ago, but the celebration doesn't last long as they express concern that they might not hit their financial targets in 2017. Purdue University and the CME just releasing the results of their monthly ag barometer, which gauges farmers' sentiment on the economy. The barometer reading 131 for the month of June, virtually unchanged from the April and May readings of 130, but well above levels scored prior to the November election. While the current financial situation for many farm operations has stabilized, a third of those surveyed say they won't hit their financial projections from earlier in the year.
While about 60% of the producers said they are on track with their budgets, 28% of the producers in our survey said they expect performance will fall short of what they projected. Those answers probably reflect some poor spring planting conditions here in the eastern Corn Belt, as well as some drought concerns in parts of the Plains states.
It seems as if many producers throughout the Corn Belt are dealing with a taxing crop year, from drought in the west to water in the east. But for Northwest Ohio growers, this marks the third consecutive year of weather challenges. Betsy Gibbon reports.
Northwest Ohio farmers like Kent Eddy are in a rush, trying their best to help a crop that looks a month behind.
It's been almost a nightmare.
Producers in the area experiencing another tough start to the growing season, where the water wouldn't shut off and planting windows were small, a sign now showing up in the rows.
The corn is all over the place. If the corn wasn't replanted, the stands usually aren't there. If it's been replanted, you've got corn of all different heights.
And the beans don't look much better.
They're behind, they're short, they're going to need a lot of time.
Producers like Eddy replanted, patching up some fields up to 3 times.
Up to 3 times, yeah. And that's not uncommon. I've heard of other guys the same way.
Rex Williamson is a crop insurance agent in Payne, Ohio.
We've had, I believe, more replant claims filed this season so far than we ever have in the history of the agency. We have over 1,700 replant claims filed right now.
Although Williamson says there aren't as many prevent plant acres as he anticipated, he believes the area had more of those claims 2 years ago.
Actually, we have, I believe, 35 or 40 prevent plant claims filed at this time.
And while farmers throughout the Corn Belt are dealing with their own weather challenges, this marks the third consecutive tough year for Northwest Ohio farmers.
I think it's important to be honest and acknowledge that this area has been hit with some struggles and some challenges.
Well, we've had 3 years in a row of subpar yields. 15, as I said, was really bad, and we were living off of crop insurance, and 16 was average. 17 looks like we could again be in a situation where we're going to have a tough time getting the crop, getting the yields where they need to be. Right now we're probably at break even if we get a good yield.
While 2017 is similar to 2 years ago when the area got doused with rain, farmers hope the weather turns around so a crop that's behind will produce. Reporting in Van Wert and Paulding County, Ohio, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
All right, thanks, Betsy. Eddy says he replanted about 20% of his corn acres to soybeans. He parked the planter around June 10th. While Ohio struggles, it's still not as bad as Indiana corn, with just 47% called good to excellent. Overall, 68% sits in those categories, up a point from last week. 10% is starting to tassel, 3 points behind average. Turning to beans, they dropped 2 points in condition, 64%, now called good to excellent. North Dakota beans saw a decline of 6 points. 18% of the nation's soy crop is blooming, a point ahead of average. And cotton seeing a 3-point drop in condition ratings from last week, much of that due to a 6-point decline in Texas cotton. Spring wheat also seeing a 3-point drop in condition ratings, 37% now called good to excellent. Montana seeing the biggest drop, down 14 points from just last week. That's 8% considered good to excellent there. Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson says he's deciding to back the state plant board's proposal to ban dicamba in his state as the, quote, volume of complaints justify emergency action. As of the morning of June 30th, the plant board had received more than 500 complaints about drift. The mounting complaints propelled the board to pass a proposal to ban the herbicide. Now, 2 proposals pertaining to that ban will move to the state's Legislative Council for review. The Legislative Council's next meeting is scheduled for July 21st, 2017. The governor also endorsing a proposal calling for stiffer penalties in cases of dicamba misuse. The president has been promising to improve broadband service to rural areas as part of his nationwide infrastructure plan, while a Bloomberg report says it would take roughly $80 billion to expand broadband to all rural areas in America that need it. However, Trump's most recent spending proposal only set aside $25 million over the next 10 years on rural infrastructure needs. Roughly 55% of rural residents have access to broadband with speeds faster than 25 megabits per second, which is the government standard for adequate service. Compare that with 94% in urban areas across the country. Well, let's see how crops are doing elsewhere in the country. For that, we turn to Mike Hoffman in today's Crop Comments. Good morning, Mike.
Thanks, Clinton. Mike Madsen out of Heron Lake, Minnesota, says the fields are still digesting the rain, ranging from 3.5 to 5.5 inches back in June. He says the area is far from the garden spot. And the next photo comes from Christopher Rice in southern Weld County, Colorado. Christopher says the area had a wetter May. June was hotter than usual, but these irrigated fields are doing quite well. And taking a look at the root zone moisture, there have been some big changes. It is wet from the Gulf Coast into the Great Lakes, and it is getting a little better in the northern plains. We'll talk more about that and have your forecast in a few minutes. First, here are some hometown temps.
Visit farmjournalpro.com. Trusted analysis, professional insight. farmjournalpro.com.
The wheat market took a wild ride Wednesday. We'll talk more about that coming up at the Agribusiness Desk. And from our partners over at Drovers, see how a judge's ruling in Montana could have coast-to-coast implications on the beef checkoff. Plus, putting Vladimir Putin's face in the dirt, literally. Find out why.
Agday, brought to you by Top Third Ag Marketing. Farmer first with a plan for every market.
In agribusiness, it was a volatile day in markets, especially for wheat. Let's see how things settled from the floor of the CME in Chicago.
Wheat was lower for the first time in a while. Futures really started higher, but profit taking kind of put a lid on the market, and it really sent it a little bit lower. Minneapolis wheat hit a record 868.5. That also pulled the Chicago and Kansas City up to new one-year highs. There has been some profit taking, but it still looks like that the hot and dry conditions are going to remain. So we expect that there's going to be big volatility the rest of the summer. So watch out for that. Just because today was a little bit off doesn't mean this rally is completely over. There is concerns that the hot and dry conditions are going to spread into areas where there's a lot of soybeans in Nebraska, perhaps western Minnesota. That really is going to put some stress on some of the markets in the soybeans. And we know that from the report last Friday gave soybeans an awful big boost because of the reduction in the acreage. Live cattle is drifting lower. What's happened is that the sagging futures really broke through that 10-day moving average, and there's been some follow-through selling coming in. The auction after the close today has some traders worried, and a sell-off kind of ensued, and it kind of broke us out of that channel. With feeders also falling along with it, it certainly looks like that the futures are having really really trouble finding some support to keep this market afloat. That's all from the floor at the CME Group. I'm Virginia McGathy.
Here at the Agribusiness Desk, I have Tommy Grisavi, Advanced Trading. Tommy, let's talk about this wheat market. You've been following this pretty closely here for the last few years. Spring wheat sparked a heck of a rally. Is it dragging the rest of our grains up, or is it the lead here?
It's sure exciting to look at your iPhone and see wheat up 25 at night. So, yeah, absolutely. If you're short a ton of Board of Trade wheat or Kansas City wheat, you had to be asking yourself, how am I going to watch Minneapolis contract rally 25, 50 cents a day and not think about buying some protection here? I kind of wonder who's caught short. There's still a lot of wheat around, but maybe it's a bigger picture. We're starting to have problem in the world, a little dry weather in Australia, little problems in Europe, China, who knows, they don't always tell the truth, so we don't know what's going on over there. But as weather problems happen, nobody wants to buy anything when it's cheap, but as we talked about, as it starts to go up, they're actually starting to see panic buying in wheat. And now growers are back. A grower who didn't plant spring wheat because it was such a loss is now profitable for this year and could be profitable next year. And so 10 growers called me this week and said, how do I protect this price for 18? I go, these are guys who said I'm never growing wheat again. They're back in. So they're going to grow something.
So as we start talking about protecting this price, strategies for making that happen, are there some really good ways to do that?
Yeah, you got to watch the whole curve. You got to watch all the bunts, and you have to throw a floor in there somewhere. Some guys are actually selling cash, calling the elevator, selling HTAs. Nobody wants to sell $7 wheat if it's going to 9 or 12, if we knew that. But nobody goes broke making a profit either. We like a put option. Some people don't like doing that. Some people watch the show every week. They're never going to buy an option. They're just going to make a cash sale. I'd much rather see you make a cash sale at a profit than a loss.
All right. As this weather thing continues to play out, especially in the northern plains, do you think this continues, or are we kind of running some steam out of this thing?
I do. They'll start harvesting wheat in a few acres. Some guys have already bailed it up, so they've already had their harvest. I see a lot of pictures on the internet, which everything's true on there, of cows grazing on in the spring wheat fields. So they're saying, hey, we had our harvest, we let the cows out on our wheat. If it's truly that bad in Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, this wheat market's got quite a story for quite a while.
Yeah, and we look at Canada, we know Canada didn't plant as many acres either.
As many acres,
right. All right, we'll keep an eye on it. Tommy, thanks for being here. We'll be back with more Ag Day in just a minute.
Interested in spending a day with a trader? Call Tommy Grisafi at 800-664-4383. Get the roots your crops need by getting Radiate first. Visit lovelandproducts.com/radiate. See your CPS dealer today.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman looking at the root zone moisture map. And if we look at this, Mike, we do see some significant changes.
It's amazing how wet it is, number one, parts of the Gulf Coast into the Great Lakes, but also the northern plains, eastern Montana, Nebraska, South and North Dakota, all have gotten better since last week. In fact, there was a whole bunch of orange and red showing up from North Dakota down in Nebraska last week. So even though I know you're still a little drier than normal, you've had some rain to get you out of that real dry situation. Very wet, though. Great Lakes and the parts of the Northeast, also from Kentucky southward to the Gulf Coast. And it's wet out west for this time of the year, although it's typically on the dry side. So even being a little wetter than normal out there isn't a big deal, more than likely. Here's the way things shape up as we start the day. You can see a storm system moving through the central Ohio Valley, Kentucky into West Virginia. We'll see some showers and thunderstorms associated with that system. Another system diving into the northern plains will eventually create some cooler air coming this way again. And we have a little upper air disturbance that may create a few showers and thunderstorms for the northern Great Lakes. Other than that, it's mainly dry across the country. You can see as we head through tonight and into the day tomorrow, high pressure starting to build into the northern plains. That's going to be cooler, drier air as we head toward this weekend. Just a few scattered showers to start the day in the Northeast and the Great Lakes. And adding in tomorrow, you can see how things move. Both fronts continue to progress slowly southward, so the southeastern one will have some scattered showers and thunderstorms along it. And the second one will have some decent areas of showers and thunderstorms, probably the eastern Ohio Valley, southeastern portions of the Great Lakes. Just that hit and miss variety afternoon showers and thunderstorms popping up out west, but most areas get missed in this situation. Excuse me, let's take a look at precipitation estimates over the past 24 hours. Fair amount with that system moving through the central portions of the Mississippi Valley. We'll add on the next 36 hours. You can see how that system continues to move east. So some areas that are already pretty wet Getting some more in that entire area. Scattered lighter amounts farther north in the Great Lakes and also in the southeast, with very little occurring out west. Of course, it is hot and dry. Lots of 90s this afternoon for the west all the way up into the northern Rockies, with triple digits in the southwest. And you can see a little more pleasant for the eastern Ohio Valley into the northeast. Low temperatures tonight, lots of 70s, so kind of on the muggy side, Central Plains southward. And more of the same tomorrow. The heat continues out west. It does cool down a little bit over the northern plains. Here's the jet stream, and you'll notice how we have the trough in the Great Lakes, the ridge out west. And that pattern is going to continue. This is the pattern we keep wanting to go back to for some reason as we have moved through the summer, and it looks like that is going to continue. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Winnemucca, Nevada, today sunny and continued hot, high temperature of 99. Miami, Oklahoma, a good deal of sunshine and warm, high of 88. And finally, Syracuse, New York, a mix of sun and clouds, maybe a shower in some areas, high around 80 degrees.
When we come back, we'll look at beef markets on Drovers TV, including new headwinds for state beef checkoffs, and later, finding art in agriculture.
Save time each day and receive the latest market prices directly to your cell phone with market updates. It makes it effortless to stay aware of shifting market prices. Just text Markets 8 to 31313 to get started.
On Drovers TV, Rabobank releasing its second quarter analysis of beef markets. It says global shipments from the U.S. are expected to increase following several months of hiccups by other nations, citing political and food safety turmoil in Brazil, a trade pact with China, and reduced herds in Australia and New Zealand. There's now more space for U.S. beef in global markets. Meanwhile, China is now taking a closer look at Brazilian meat imports. The country's quality watchdog destroyed or returned more than 350 tons of Brazilian meat in May. State officials say some beef and chicken didn't pass inspection and quarantine, while others had the wrong labels. The U.S. halted imports of fresh beef from Brazil last month after a significant percentage of shipments failed safety checks. Back at home, last month, a federal judge in Montana upheld an injunction barring the Montana Beef Council from automatically collecting funds from the National Beef Checkoff Program. The judge's ruling declaring the Montana Beef Council a private entity not under the oversight of USDA, and therefore the beef promotions it funds are not public speech. That means the Montana Beef Council must obtain the consent of Montana producers before utilizing their money.
The ruling in Montana may have far-reaching implications on the 43 state beef councils. In May, a Utah rancher filed a similar suit in Salt Lake City over the $1.50 Utah state beef checkoff. The plaintiff in the case says that since the Utah Beef Council is a private entity, it is unconstitutional for Utah's producers to be compelled to finance public speech. The plaintiff believes the checkoff violates his constitutional right to freedom of speech.
Henderson says it looks likely that more states will see challenges to their state beef checkoffs. Meanwhile, cattle prices taking another step backward in June. Fed cattle prices finishing the month in the low 120s, falling $17 per hundredweight over the month. Choice beef cutouts are also down, off $25 per hundred. Part of the drop seasonal. The big demand holidays are mostly past. Supplies are starting to increase. Meanwhile, replacement heifers trending higher last month. The latest numbers from Drovers showing strong demand for high-quality bred heifers at auction. With fewer heifers on the market and more retention at the ranch, buyers drove up prices. Open heifers gaining $6 per hundred last month, with young and middle-aged females bringing $4 more. Still to come, as Germany prepares to host a summit of world leaders, a neighboring country is laying out a welcome mat to the Russian leader. Details when Agday continues.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Discover the power behind the M6 series at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
Art comes in many forms: spoken word, canvas, sculpture, but sometimes it's the field right outside your back door. In northern Italy, an artist has turned a just harvested wheat field into a canvas of sorts. A giant portrait of Russian President Vladimir Putin was cut into a field near the Italian city of Verona. Alongside was the caption G20 2017. The artist used a tractor to create the 450-foot wide picture just a few days ahead of the upcoming G20 summit in Hamburg, Germany. The artist says he doesn't measure the field before starting, but apparently has an innate sense of proportion and the ability to drive a tractor. The art will only last a couple of days as the farmer sows his next crop. And there you have it. For Betsy Gibbon and Mike Hoffman, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day in farm country.
Agday is powered by Ram Trucks, America's longest lasting pickups.